Nobody
Who
wants
wants
that.
a movie about true love? What kind of woman do we want out there seeking true love, Eliana? It's the outrage.
I wanted my money back. I was very disappointed.
Every way that Disney changed the story, it changed it for the worse.
Whiny brat.
No one on the right side of America can stand the star of this movie.
Go woke, get broke, and Disney's gonna lose money on this movie, and I believe it.
Have you ever watched a movie flop so hard that even the lead actress had to sit in an empty theater just to process it? Well, that's exactly what happened to Rachel Zegler in Disney's Snow White. And it wasn't just any flop, it was one of the most brutal Hollywood disasters ever seen. From cringeworthy reviews to shocking box office numbers, this movie didn't just fail, it redefined what it means to be a career-ending catastrophe. But what exactly went wrong? And how did Rachel go from Disney darling to a walking disaster in the blink of an eye? Let's dive into the dramatic unraveling of Snow White and the story behind its lead actress, who may have burned more bridges than the movie itself.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird. We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story, just because like we cast a guy in the movie. Andrew Burnap, great dude. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby.
Imagine the lead actress of a multi-million-dollar movie walking into a theater, expecting to see fans lining up to catch her big debut, only to be greeted by nothing but silence. That's exactly what Rachel Zegler faced when she showed up for the premiere of Snow White. But instead of the usual fanfare, there was nothing but an eerie emptiness in the theater. It was so bad that you could hear the sound of popcorn kernels popping in the background, if there were even any kernels at all. Rachel wasn't just facing a quiet premiere, she was in a theater that looked like it had been abandoned, with only a handful of friends present for moral support. To make matters worse, Rachel filmed herself buying tickets and walking into the near-deserted theater, fully aware that this moment would go viral, but instead of using it to laugh it off or embrace the awkwardness, the whole scene quickly spiraled into meme material. Fans and critics alike couldn't help but ridicule what should have been a celebration of a major Disney release. What should have been a moment of pride turned into an embarrassing spectacle. Now, let's be clear, some fans defended Rachel, claiming that she had rented out the whole theater, but the truth was evident. Videos and photos flooded social media, showing just how empty the theater really was. Even when people went to see the movie later, the experience wasn't much better. There were no crowds, no excitement, just a stark reminder of how badly Snow White had flopped. This wasn't just a quiet premiere, it was a public spectacle that amplified the growing concerns about the film's failure. And you can't help but wonder, how did it all go so wrong? It wasn't just an empty theater that sealed the movie's fate, it was the growing number of controversies, poor reviews, and disastrous box office numbers that followed. But the quiet theater incident, that was just the beginning. When you spend a staggering $370 million to produce and market a film, you expect a return. But Snow White didn't just fail to meet expectations, it utterly bombed. The movie, which had the weight of Disney's legacy behind it, opened to a disastrous $43 million in its first weekend. And if you think that's bad, just wait for what happened next. In its second weekend, the numbers took a nosedive that even the most pessimistic analysts didn't see coming, a brutal 66% drop in ticket sales. The film only pulled in $14.2 million, and it was crushed by other movies in the same release window. What makes this decline even more shocking is that Snow White was outperformed by a much smaller action film, a hard-working man. With fewer theaters and no big-name franchise backing it, this underdog outshone Disney's grand fairy tale reimagining, highlighting just how badly the movie had failed. It wasn't just the numbers, it was the sheer embarrassment of a major Disney production being overshadowed by a simple action movie. If that wasn't bad enough, even The Chosen Last Supper, a film with half the number of theaters, came dangerously close to surpassing Snow White's earnings. As the weeks went on, the situation only worsened. The upcoming release of Minecraft, another big-ticket movie, spelled the final nail in Snow White's coffin. By March 30th, 2025, the film's total global gross barely scraped $142.8 million, far from breaking even, and analysts were already projecting a loss that could exceed $100 million. To make matters worse, the movie's IMDb score took a dive, plummeting to a shocking 1.5 out of 10 at one point. This wasn't just a disappointment, it was a disaster of biblical proportions. For a studio that had made a billion-dollar hit with the Lion King remake, the stark contrast in performance couldn't have been more evident. What went wrong? How did this grand reimagining of a beloved classic fall apart so spectacularly? The answer isn't just in the numbers, it's in the controversies and missteps that followed. But that's a story that gets even more bizarre.
The movie is doing catastrophically. They spent $300 million and it currently has a 2.2 out of 10 rating.
They spent $170 million to make the thing. It had the lowest opening, under $50 million, of any of these live-action Disney remakes.
When you're the lead in a Disney film, you'd think the goal is to keep the buzz positive, right? Well, Rachel Zegler somehow managed to do the opposite, turning her social media presence into a PR disaster. It all started when she made some seriously controversial remarks about the original Snow White film. Zegler openly called the 1937 classic weird and criticized the love story at the heart of the plot, calling the prince creepy for stalking Snow White. Fans who had grown up with the original movie were immediately offended. How could the star of a film meant to honor that legacy call it weird? This was the first major red flag, but it didn't end there. Instead of letting the backlash die down, Rachel doubled down. She went on to tell entire political groups not to bother watching the movie. It was a bizarre move for someone whose film was supposed to be a family-friendly adventure, not a political commentary. "I don't need your business," she bluntly told a significant portion of her potential audience. It's one thing to have personal beliefs, but using a major Disney film as a platform to express them was a huge misstep. The negative response wasn't just coming from moviegoers, it was now starting to reach political lines, dividing fans and alienating an even broader audience. But the real kicker came when Rachel got into an online feud with her co-star Gal Gadot. The tension between the two women became the talk of Hollywood, and it didn't help that Rachel's posts seemed to make things worse. She publicly made a comment about Gal, calling her a pageant queen, then skipped over her in a heartfelt Instagram post thanking the cast. The implication was clear. There was some major tension between them. Was it a coincidence, or was it shade? The speculation only fueled the controversy, and by this point, the drama was reaching a boiling point. And yet, even after all this, things were about to get even messier, because the true fallout from Rachel's actions was just starting to unfold.
That my name is Gal, and I'm Jewish, and we have had enough of Jew hatred. We would see people not condemning Hamas, but celebrating, justifying, and cheering on a massacre of Jews.
I will love you through these 4 years as best I can. F Donald Trump. Yeah.
President Rachel Zegler also posted, F Trump kinds of posts on social media.
By the time Rachel Zegler's controversial comments and public feuds were dominating the headlines, it was clear that the fallout from Snow White was becoming too much for Disney to ignore. The studio's PR team was scrambling to contain the damage, and desperate measures were taken to salvage Rachel's image. Disney reportedly brought in a social media guru to manage her online presence, but it was like trying to control a wildfire with a garden hose. Her posts had already gone viral for all the wrong reasons, insulting fans, bashing the original movie, and stirring up drama with co-stars. Even Spielberg, who had been a major supporter of the film, reportedly raised concerns about how out of control things had gotten. The backlash was becoming so severe that Disney's producers felt the need to step in. It wasn't long before they decided that a face-to-face meeting with Rachel was necessary to try to rein in the chaos. They couldn't let the film, and by extension their entire brand, continue to spiral down this path. Yet, despite all the damage control efforts, Rachel's online persona had already made her a lightning rod for controversy. But it wasn't just Disney trying to fix things. Hollywood in general began distancing itself from the actress. Sources claim that Rachel was originally set to voice a character in Toy Story 5 and had been in talks for a role in Pirates of the Caribbean, but both of those opportunities evaporated in the wake of the Snow White disaster. It's a harsh reality in the film industry. When the drama outweighs the talent, even the biggest studios don't want to take a risk. And then came the apology post. It was painfully out of character for Rachel, and fans weren't buying it. It was almost as if Disney had scripted it for her, but the damage was already done. The apology felt like a band-aid on a gaping wound. Too little, too late. But the real kicker was that despite her efforts to salvage her reputation, Hollywood had already started ghosting her, And this wasn't just about a single movie, it was about the career consequences that would follow.
Like so many kids raised on TikTok, she's all for infantada is the only global solution.
So apparently, according to them and according to the writers of Snow White, women can't even want to be in love anymore.
Of them all, when she looks like Lord Farquaad in the film.
Snow White was supposed to be a major triumph for Disney, an ambitious reimagining of a beloved classic starring the up-and-coming Rachel Zegler. Instead, it has become the poster child for Hollywood's identity crisis. Rather than inspiring awe and excitement, the film quickly turned into a punchline. It wasn't just the low box office numbers or the empty theaters that sealed its fate. It was the way the entire production became a symbol of what happens when ego, controversy, and a massive budget collide. Disney had tried to update the fairy tale to fit modern sensibilities, but in doing so, they inadvertently created a disaster that would haunt them for years to come. What started as a high-profile Disney project is now more of a cautionary tale about the dangers of letting personal opinions and off-screen drama overshadow a film's legacy. Snow White was supposed to be a moment of celebration, a chance for Rachel Zegler to cement her place in Hollywood. Instead, it became a story of how fast fame can unravel. Rachel herself has said that the film was life-changing and emotional for her, but in the wake of its catastrophic failure, these statements have become a bitter reminder of just how much she lost in the process. The film is now used as a reference point for how quickly things can go south in Hollywood. The internet has transformed it into meme material, mocking everything from its empty theater premieres to the drama that followed. Instead of inspiring nostalgia or joy, Snow White will likely be remembered for its spectacular fall from grace. And for Rachel Zegler, she's become a walking example of how Hollywood can turn on you in a flash. Once seen as a rising star, she's now known more for her public meltdown than her acting ability. It's a stark reminder that in an industry like Hollywood, no one is immune to the fallout of a flop. So what does the future hold for Rachel? Will she bounce back from this disaster, or is the end of her career already written in the stars? The story isn't over yet, but it's clear that Snow White's legacy will forever be tainted.
It's got extra musical numbers that are incredibly unnecessary that really add to that runtime.
Rachel Zegler is extraordinarily woke, but she's woke in a way that's quite deranged.
So, is this the end of Rachel Zegler's career, or does she have a chance to redeem herself after this royal disaster? The aftermath of Snow White has left her in a precarious position, one where every misstep seems magnified and the movie's failure continues to haunt her. Hollywood's unpredictable nature means there's always room for a comeback, but the question remains, can Rachel rise from the ashes of this disaster, or will she be forever tied to the flop that shook Disney to its core? One thing is for sure, Snow White is no longer a fairy tale of success. It's a cautionary tale about the risks of mixing politics, drama, and a beloved classic. It's about the dangers of speaking out without thinking about the consequences, and how quickly a star can go from Hollywood darling to industry pariah. In the end, the movie's failure wasn't just about empty theaters or plummeting box office numbers. It was about the perfect storm of bad decisions, both on and off screen. As for Rachel Zegler, her story is far from over. She's still young, talented, and capable of learning from her mistakes. Whether she can turn the page on this chapter of her career remains to be seen. But for now, Snow White stands as a reminder that not every fairy tale comes with a happily ever after, especially if you're caught in the crossfire of a career-destroying catastrophe. So what do you think? Is Rachel's Hollywood journey truly over, or can she find her way back to the spotlight? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And until next time, remember, in Hollywood, the show must always go on, whether it's a hit or a disaster.